Today is March 22nd, 2023. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. We're just a few things on today's program. Yesterday, Tuesday, the Oklahoma State Supreme Court upheld the state's very strict pro-life law. Now let's do a little Oklahoma history, at least when that deals with abortion. The state has or had a trigger law. So let's define what that is. A trigger law is a derogatory term coined by the pro-abortion people, but it refers to a law that has been on the books prior to Roe v. Wade. So sometime before 1973, maybe back to the 1850s or 60s, or in Oklahoma's case, back to 1890, I think revised in 1910. So it was enacted during its territorial days. But it was a pro-life law that banned abortions except for the life of the mother. And when Roe v. Wade came along, that law was put on hold, basically, and put on a shelf to collect dust. But it was there with the hope that maybe someday Roe v. Wade could be overturned and these trigger laws could take effect again, and in many cases immediately. So when the Dobbs decision was when the Dobbs decision was decided in June of last year, in 2022, the Oklahoma's pro-life law took effect again. Well, even before then, even before Dobbs, the state passed a very strict pro-life law. So they really kind of had two laws. But after Dobbs, this trigger law took effect, and Oklahoma, basically had banned abortions from conception. And a few pro-abortion organizations filed a lawsuit. Well, the Supreme Court in the state Supreme Court, has upheld their trigger law. And they say here that nothing in the state constitution has ever indicated that there is a right to kill babies in abortions. No person, now here again, when they say person, they're including the unborn, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And the court also stated, quote, "We hold that the Oklahoma Constitution creates an inherent right of a pregnant woman to terminate a pregnancy when necessary to preserve her life," unquote. And that's the only restriction, the woman's life. That the state constitution permits abortion, but only in that one area. So that's good news coming out of Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a very pro-life state. And here we're stuck in Michigan with Gretchen Whitmer and the disastrous Prop 3. But Oklahoma is a very pro-life state. Going back to this line from the Constitution that they kind of referred to, that we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, that's Tom Jefferson's wording. Naturally, life is first, because you can't have liberty unless you have life, and you can't have happiness without life. So it is number one, it is first, it is the most important. But this idea of preserving life in the context of the pro-life movement has a long history. Daniel Williams is I believe he's pro-life, but he is a history professor down in Georgia. And he wrote a book back in 2016 called Defenders of the Unborn. It's a really good book. And the book basically covers the period prior to Roe v. Wade. He does kind of finish the last chapter with kind of like an update through the 1970s. But for the most part, the book covers the movement from the early 1960s through the Roe decision. And he writes and he has a lot of documentation to bear this out, but he writes that most, if many, if not most, of all the early pro-life leaders across the country were Democrats, as in Democratic Party. They were liberals. They were against the Vietnam War, and they favored social justice. Being pro-life, here again, we're talking, mid to late 1960s, being pro-life was a progressive liberal idea. Progressive coming from the word progress. After World War II, the newly created United Nations drafted a document on the rights of the child, including the protection of life in the womb. And at this time too, you had the Holocaust. 6 million Jews slaughtered by the Nazis, and then you had millions, tens of millions of people killed during World War II. Whether it's from Stalin or Hitler, and you had this whole issue of people being denied basic civil rights, basic human rights, especially in this context of the Holocaust. And then, as we moved into the late 1950s into the 1960s, when the Vietnam War became more of an issue, the U.S. took a policy rather than work toward a negotiated settlement. They pursued a policy of war, and hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese civilians and soldiers were killed, and about 55 to 60,000 American troops were killed during that 20-year war between the late 1950s and the mid-1950s to the mid-1970s. Pro-lifers compared the killing fields of Vietnam with the killing within abortion clinics. They saw that connection. The expansion of rights for the unborn child is a liberal position. Now, even though I'm a political conservative, I know that growing or expanding the rights of babies is a progressive concept. It just is. It is a progressive concept. Unfortunately, this is a tragedy, how things have been juxtaposed. Most pro-abortion liberals take the conservative position, similar to the ones taken by slave owners before the Civil War. My body, my choice. My slaves, my choice. What in our terminology, what would the slave owner be saying? I'm not telling you to own slaves. Just don't deny me my right to own slaves. My choice. So with the pro-abortion people, I own my body. I control the life within me. That life has no rights and does not even have the right to be called a person or a human being. It's just a clump of cells. Slaves have no rights. I can do with them as I please. I can buy them. I can sell them. Denying a human baby the right to be born and to live a life, just to live a life, is similar to denying slaves their right to be free and live their lives as free human beings. Why can't liberals, today's liberals, be more liberal on human rights for unborn babies? Why can't they see it? They are stuck, at least the way I see it, they are stuck in a conservative, pro-slavery, pro-denial of human rights mentality. So, if you are pro-life, and I'm hoping you are watching this little video, if you are pro-life, celebrate the fact that you are a progressive person supporting progressive rights for the unborn. Before I go, just want to remind everybody to go to the website. Well, you're already on the website if you're seeing this, kazoortl.org. Go to the website and make a reservation for our dinner, our Focus on Life dinner, May 11, 2023. With that, I will let you go, and I will see you next time.